Hello everyone, welcome back to a Mexico Relocation Guide video. If you're new around here, my name is Mariana. I'm the owner and founder of Mexico Relocation Guide. And in Mexico Relocation Guides videos, we try to help you move to Mexico the right way. I want to thank you all for submitting your questions ahead of time. Today's topic is all about residency visas. So let's get right into it. So the very first question that I think we should cover regarding residency visas is, what are the types of residency visas in Mexico? There are a few residency visas, but most of you watching at home will apply through economic solvency. And the two most common residency types are either temporary or permanent residency, which are also known as residencia temporal y residencia permanente. Now let's define the two. With temporary residency, you can live in Mexico for up to 4 years. Temporary residents almost always get their first residency card for 1 year. Then you will need to renew this card for an additional 1, 2, or 3 years. I recommend renewing for 3 additional years. After 4 consecutive years as a temporary resident, you can then apply to become a permanent resident at immigration without needing financial solvency. Now, some of you want to apply for permanent residency from the very beginning, bypassing the 4-year necessity or the 4-year requirement. With permanent residency from the very beginning, you can live in Mexico indefinitely and you never have to renew your residency. Most foreigners coming to Mexico get temporary residency first because in order for you to get permanent residency, you need to be retired or basically no longer earning an income or a salary. Also, the solvency requirements are higher for permanent residency. And then most consulates require that applicants going for permanent residency not only be retired and have higher income requirements, but also be over the age of 60. Which brings us to our next frequently asked question, and that is, what are the income requirements for residency? The first thing I must make you aware of is most of you will need to apply at a Mexican consulate in your home country. And the requirements do vary from one Mexican embassy or consulate to the other. Most of you guys watching at home and watching this channel are watching us from the United States. So I'm going to use the financial requirements from the Mexican consulates in the United States as an example. To give you an idea, for temporary residency, the income requirements start as low as $2,500 and up to $3,500 US dollars a month in employment for the past 6 months. If you don't have a stable income or would prefer to apply based on savings or investments, then you need to prove at least $41,000 and up to $52,000 in savings or investments for the past 12 months. And it's either or, so you could use investments or you could use employment income. Now, to apply for permanent residency at a Mexican consulate, you must prove at least $4,200 and up to $5,400 US dollars a month in employment income. Or you can use savings and investments starting at $170,000 and up to $208,000 US dollars for the past 12 months. Again, the income requirements vary a lot depending on the consulate that you apply at. To get a list of consulates and their income requirements, go to the link in the comments. I have income requirements for a lot of consulates in the United States, Canada, and other countries. What if I have family? What are the income requirements then? Well, at most Mexican consulates, they will require the main applicant to be financially solvent. And then any additional family members will need to prove 800 to 1,000 US dollars a month to qualify. However, this also varies by consulate. Some consulates want each applicant to meet the financial requirements as an individual. Regardless if you are married or you have children, if one of them cannot qualify individually or you don't have an extra $800 to $1,000 a month for them to qualify as family members, don't worry. You can still get them residency. Mexico is a very pro-family country, and as long as a family member obtains residency, you can then petition your spouse, any children under 18, or even your parents. They can become residents in Mexico without financial solvency requirements. Who qualifies for residency if they are a family member of a Mexican resident? So most applicants need to start the residency visa at a Mexican consulate in their home country, with the exception of family members. As a resident of Mexico, you can petition for direct family members such as spouses, as long as you have a marriage certificate, children under 18 with the birth certificate of the minor, your mother or father, anybody that is a common law marriage, and you do need a certificate of common law marriage. Grown children can also be authorized in case of disability, but it does need to be certified by Mexican authorities, and the requirements are a little bit more complicated. You can also petition underage siblings under your custody. However, keep in mind that requirements are also more complicated. If you need any help with this process or you need to petition some exceptional cases, we really do recommend working with an immigration facilitator. If you need a recommendation for an immigration facilitator, I'll include a link down below on how you can get that information. What can you expect to pay for residency in Mexico? What are immigration fees? Well, the first thing to consider is that immigration fees change every year. Currently, it's 2023. So the immigration fees are the following. For the consular visit, or what you pay at the consulate, are 51 US dollars. Again, giving you guys US dollars because most of you watching at home are watching us from the United States. The $51 is paid at the Mexican consulate or embassy. Now, because most temporary residents are initially given their card for 1 year, most of you will pay 5,108 Mexican pesos for a 1-year residency card. Now, when you go renew this residency card, you can renew for 1 year, which is another 5,108 pesos, 2 years, which is 7,654 pesos, or 3 additional years, which is 9,693 pesos. If you're given permanent residency from the very beginning at a Mexican consulate, your visa is indefinite. You don't need to renew it. And you only pay 6,226 pesos one time. Now, to calculate these costs in Canadian or US dollars or whatever currency it is that you're watching us from, I recommend using an app like xe.com to find out today's exchange rate. Now, keep in mind that these are only immigration fees and do not include the cost of hiring an immigration facilitator. And if you're watching this video anytime after 2023, I will leave a link in the description of this video so you can get the most up-to-date immigration fees, as well as some additional information for fees like what does a facilitator cost, switching from temporary to permanent residency, getting an exit and reentry permit, what does a work permit cost, and other information like that. The link is in the description of this video. So what are the differences between temporary and permanent residency? Well, aside from having different solvency requirements, there are a couple of other differences between these two residency visas. For starters, with temporary residency, the income requirements are going to be lower to apply than permanent. You can also bring a foreign plated vehicle for the duration of your residency visa. So for those of you that are wanting to drive from either Canada or the United States, you can bring your foreign plated car as a temporary resident for the duration of your residency card. If you petition a family member, such as a spouse or an underage child or one of your parents, they will also receive temporary residency. If you want to work in Mexico, you must apply for a work permit as a temporary resident. And as a temporary resident, after 4 consecutive years, you can then apply for permanent residency without financial requirements. Now, with a permanent residency, there are a couple of pros or differences. Some of those include you never have to renew your residency, meaning it's totally indefinite. Work permission is implied in Mexico as a permanent resident, meaning that you don't have to go through the process of asking for a work permission or work permit, and you don't have to pay an additional fee for that. If you petition a family member, for example, a spouse, they will receive a 2-year temporary residency, and then they can apply for permanent residency. So basically, they get fast-tracked into permanent residency. Permanent residents, it's also easier for you to apply for things like an INAPAM card, which is Mexico's retiree discounts card. A lot of permanent residents have also reported that it's easier for them to open a bank account at some banks. And for all residents of Mexico, there are some additional perks to being a resident. Just to name a few, you can come in and out of Mexico as you'd like without the limits. You can bring your household goods to Mexico free of import taxes one time. You have access to Mexico's low-cost healthcare through IMSS. You have Many private healthcare insurance companies require you to be a resident. As a resident, you can apply for a Mexican driver's license. You can work in Mexico or run a business in Mexico as a resident. You can register or nationalize a vehicle in Mexico. You avoid capital gains up to a certain amount in pesos when you sell your property in Mexico. You also get significant discounts to things like museums, local adventure parks, and other things that are available to locals only and with a local ID. And those local IDs are only available to people who are nationals or residents of Mexico. The cost of getting residency is very affordable in Mexico compared to other countries and significantly faster. And you can also become a Mexican citizen after meeting the requirements. So I hope this has been really helpful. I hope this answers a lot of your frequently asked questions regarding residency. There's going to be a part 2 following today's Q&A, and I thank you all so much for submitting your questions ahead of time. I would love your feedback, and I would love to know, is this more helpful or is this a better presentation for you than doing a live Q&A, somewhere where you can ask your questions in real time? Or is it better for you to submit them ahead of time and then we just answer the most frequently asked questions that we get? So I hope this has been helpful. As always, if you like this video and you found it to be helpful, give it a like, share it with anybody that you think might benefit from this information. And again, follow our website, mexicorelocationguide.com/blog, for a lot of really good information on how to move to Mexico the right way. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Hasta luego.